Well, I can't believe I have to follow that. Deontay, Brandon, you guys are a serious inspiration. Thank you. Thank you so much. I'd like to begin by actually thanking everybody here for lending me your ears for the next 10 minutes. Thank you to Landmark for organizing this, and Zeev, I don't know where he is, but Zeev for bringing this community together, because it's truly remarkable to have this many minds and this many hearts all coalescing. I think with a debt of gratitude, I should begin by doing you a favor, which is rationalizing a seemingly irrational name. Why am I the founder of an organization called the Unreasonable Group? The individual behind me, we refer to him as the patron saint of Unreasonable. This is not Father Christmas. This is the 17th century Irish playwright George Bernard Shaw. George Bernard Shaw is famous for saying that the reasonable man adapts himself to the world. The unreasonable man persists in adapting the world to himself. Therefore, all progress depends on the unreasonable person. If George Bernard Shaw is right, if all progress depends on the unreasonable person, then in a world where 2 billion people live in absolute poverty, where 1.2 billion people don't have access to electricity, where 770 million people every morning wake up without access to clean drinking water, then in the world we live in today, if all progress depends on the unreasonable person, then we can't afford not to bet on unreasonable individuals. And this is what we do at the Unreasonable Group, and it begs the question, who are the most unreasonable individuals of our time? And our belief, hands down, is entrepreneurs. The reason this word is so hard to spell, I've written it probably 10,000 times, is because I don't know if it's the E or the U, but it's because its roots are French and can be interpreted to mean to take into one's own hands. We believe desperately in entrepreneurs because they look at the world, they scan the globe, and where most of us see seemingly intractable social and environmental challenges, they look at the exact same thing and they see opportunities and solutions, and then they believe and embody this idea that impatience is a virtue, and they will those solutions into existence. I think the best way to talk about what we do is not what we do at Unreasonable. It's really the stories of a few of our entrepreneurs. We have a portfolio of about 100 companies around the world who are all doing what we think is the impossible, and I wanted to introduce you to 3 of them, and hopefully for the business leaders and the titans of industry in this room to show you not only that you can collaborate with these entrepreneurs and these unreasonable individuals, but that actually the future health of your company depends on it. The first individual I want to introduce you to, this is Xavier. He's a serial entrepreneur. Above everything else, he just has a heart of gold. He's looking at one of the biggest challenges, and he sees a market opportunity. And that challenge is that today, as I mentioned, 1.2 billion people don't have access to electricity. Just to put that into perspective, there are more people today who don't have access to electricity than when Thomas Edison turned on the first light bulb. It's because of population growth. What this means and translates into the real world is that if you spend time on the African continent, most situations look like this at night for girls. 3 out of 4 girls don't have access to electricity, and so if they're going to study at night, they're going to study next to a kerosene lantern. Kerosene lantern is jet fuel. This is incredibly dangerous. Not only is it expensive, it's a huge health hazard. For families that live with kerosene lanterns for electricity, it's about 80% of the continent. If you have one of these in your hut, one of these kerosene lanterns, it's the equivalent of smoking 2 packs of cigarettes every single day for every man, woman, and child in that house. Xavier, the entrepreneur, looked at this and didn't see the issue. He saw the solution. He launched a company called Off-Grid Electric. They launched in 2012 with a pilot in Tanzania. I'm going to click this button. There'll be a quick video. You're going to see these yellow dots appearing on the screen. Each yellow dot represents a family and a household who went from kerosene to solar because of Off-Grid Electric. You can see their growth was fast. This is literally their first pilot. Today, they have electrified over 100,000 homes across East Africa. They're beginning to scale into West Africa, and they're positioning to become the fastest growing decentralized solar company on the planet, and this started just in 2012. One of the questions is why does this work? And we heard about this morning. It's it's mobile phone proliferation. In the U.S., there's about 0.98 cell phones per person, so about 1 cell phone per person. In countries like Mali, there's 2.2 cell phones per person. Off-Grid's looked at that and realized that if you're spending $4 a week on kerosene, you can spend $4 a week on solar. They can give you a modern solar installation They'll charge you $4 a week through your mobile phone. If you don't pay that $4, then your lights don't turn on. Decentralized solar. Question is, who's interested in this? Behind me, you can see some of the bigger companies of our time. Total Energy and Tesla invested directly into off-grid to help them scale. They recently partnered with EDF. You may not know that brand. It's the largest private nuclear company on the planet. In collaboration, they're scaling solar across the continent. Next entrepreneur I want to talk to you about, she's actually a Chicagoan. Her name's, yeah, all right. Her name's Jennifer. She's a biochemist for about 20 years, turned CEO of a company called Lanzatech. She looks at this image, or this scenario, and she doesn't see a problem. She actually sees dollar signs. I don't need to describe the issues with greenhouse emissions and its direct tie into climate change. But what I want to describe is how she sees something completely different. Jennifer and her company, Lanzatech, they've discovered a technology. They've bioengineered a bacteria to literally ferment pollution, carbon monoxide and carbon dioxide, and turn it into ethanol and polyethylene. Ethanol is jet fuel. Polyethylene is plastic. How they do this is like our friends at Anheuser-Busch, it's fermentation. So this image is of their first pilot. It's in China. This is a steel mill. You can see there's a smokestack there. Instead of smoke emission going into the atmosphere, they're capturing it, they liquefy it, they put it into a fermentation tank, which you can see. Their bacteria then eats the carbon monoxide and carbon dioxide and turns it into jet fuel. I'm not making up, this is real. The question is, who do they partner with to take this to scale? It's the very people who are in this room. They partnered with Boeing and Virgin Atlantic, and within the next 12 months, you are going to hear about this all over the world. Virgin Atlantic is going to fly the first ever commercial airliner that is powered on jet fuel made from pollution. They've raised $220 million as a company. This is very real. They're positioning to be able to produce millions of tons of jet fuel out of pollution. And once again, it's very real. I just Googled this image. I don't know why it says Hot 50, but that's Jennifer and Ed Branson developing this technology together. Last entrepreneur I'll talk to you about is Ian. Ian's from Pittsburgh. And when the crisis in Haiti, when the earthquake happened, like many of us, he wanted to do something about it. A couple weeks later, he found himself personally in Haiti. And he's been there ever since. And when he spends more and more time in Haiti, what he started to notice is that there were two really prominent challenges that everybody was facing in Haiti. One was waste, plastic waste. He saw it everywhere on the streets, on the shorelines, in absolutely every corner that he looked. And the second was jobs, which was if Haiti was going to be able to bring itself out of this dire situation, the economy needed to be revitalized so they could create jobs. Ian looked at this, and though most people would see issues, joblessness, and litter, he saw a market opportunity. He created a company called Thread. Today, they employ about 3,000 people in Haiti. These individuals, they go around, they find plastic waste, they convert it into thread, they then make it into materials. The question, once again, is yes, this is an amazing entrepreneur, but who's helping them scale? It's major brands like Timberland. They just actually announced a product line. Ian asked me if I would play this video. It's just 18 seconds to make this real, so I'll play a quick video.
3, 2, 1.
So literally making shoes out of trash and creating 3,000 jobs in the process. And once again, they are literally just getting started. You're going to hear more and more about Thread as a company. We're starting to launch with the biggest apparel brands and sportswear brands really of our time. This is their first product line with Timberland. The goal for Timberland was to see 25 million unique media impressions, earned media. They've seen over 300 million. They sold the product at a 150% faster rate than their best case scenario planned. This worked. Millennials do care, but also it's an incredible product. So I think this all begs a question, which is what do we do at Unreasonable with these entrepreneurs? And to sum it up in a sentence, we forge unlikely partnerships. We try to connect these fast-paced, bleeding-edge entrepreneurs with the largest, most powerful institutions of our time to help them scale. So you heard in the introduction, I'm a philosophy major, but my confession to this room with all these business leaders is the irony that I'm actually a business school dropout. But in my Advertising 101 class, I did learn 2 things that stuck, and I want to share those with you. The first rule of advertising that I learned is that 3 things sell. That's children, puppies, and sex. The second rule of advertising is never to mix the first 2 with the third. With that, to use a photographic analogy, what do we do at Unreasonable is we change the dynamic, the energetic dynamic between entrepreneurs and very large institutions. Typically, it looks like this when you get the CEO of a Fortune 100 company to sit down with an entrepreneur. We're trying to change it to something more like this. Yeah, see, it works. It really works. Albert Einstein is famous for saying, somebody asked him, how does he teach his students? He said, I don't teach my students, I create the conditions in which they learn. We don't teach multinationals how to innovate faster, how to be more sustainable and drive more profit through that process. We don't teach entrepreneurs how to scale around the world. We create the conditions in which those 2 worlds intersect and collaborate productively and in a way that benefits everybody. I see a time is up sign, so I'm going to fast forward very quickly. I wanted to announce on this stage, this is actually why I reached out to Zeev, so thank you so much for giving me this time. We just forged a new partnership with the US State Department called Unreasonable Goals. It's centered around solving the 17 SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals. We're trying to end poverty in all its forms through the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals by 2030. This is going to be hard. Our approach is to source the 17 top performing entrepreneurs in the world towards each of these goals, to bring in 17 multinationals who also care about solving these problems, and to collectively actually move the needle and try to put a dent on these problems. A lot of the world believes that doing good and doing well are on opposite ends of a spectrum. I think in reality, that it's an X and Y axis, and maybe in the top right, you have a Brazilian politician, and in the bottom left, I can say that, my girlfriend's Brazilian. She gave me permission. In the bottom left, you might have a Red Cross volunteer, and in this, let's see, top, or is it top right? Oh, sorry, top right, maybe that's a social entrepreneur, how we normally think about social entrepreneurs. What we want to prove is that this is where the entrepreneurs of tomorrow are. This is where the business leaders of tomorrow are, and we're trying to convene them and work with all of you. Our core value is we is greater than I. It's what we believe in desperately. The last unreasonable person I want to introduce is Dave. He's here with me. He's on our team. And with that, thank you so much for your time.